Hey everyone, Ken Serini. Nice to see everybody. See a lot of familiar names there. So welcome everyone. So the purpose of today's meeting is really to, or whatever this is to kind of help you guys through your application process with the Imagine Awards. So really I want to open up if anybody has questions, and we'll talk a little bit first about the Imagine Awards and what the Imagine Awards is. First of all, I can't believe we're going into our 10th year on Long Island. So it's kind of amazing that we started this thing up and here we are 10 years later, still going strong and still gaining momentum. The Imagine Awards was originally created, and it is what an awards program. It's not a fundraising event. It is not a grant that we give out to nonprofit organizations. It is an award program, and it's like the Academy Awards for nonprofits here on Long Island. And really it's to kind of serve several purposes. First is to shed light on the nonprofit sector so that organizations can have one day in essence to bask in the glory of what is nonprofit here on Long Island. The nonprofit organizations do so much for everybody else that there should be one day that the light is shined in on the nonprofit sector. So that's kind of a primary focus. It's collaboration. It's getting a bunch of nonprofits in a room. And if you can get nonprofit leadership in a room, talking and communicating and developing relationships and starting to collaborate, you're going to be in a much better, much stronger sector. So we're looking to increase collaboration. So even if you, as we go through this process, even if you don't make it to the finals or semifinals, you should still definitely try to be in the room. Because again, magic happens in the room, collaboration happens in the room. And it's also about, education. We're constantly looking to educate the nonprofit sector. So in terms of the Imagine Awards, there are 5 key awards. There's the Serini and Associates Social Impact Award. That is for organizations that are providing impact on both the micro and macro level, micro being the people that they serve, macro being the communities. And that's for organizations that generate over $2 million worth of revenue. There's a Sir Tilman Ballin Leadership Excellence Award, and that's for a leader within your organization. It doesn't have to be your executive director. It could be a volunteer, it could be a board member, it could be a program person, whoever within your organization you think is doing phenomenal work, is known within the industry as a leader. You can apply for them. There's the Claire Friedlander Family Foundation Arts and Culture Award. We established this award a few years back because we felt that when it came to arts and cultural organizations who are very important and significant, we feel that they weren't always getting the voice against health and welfare organizations. So we wanted to create a separate category for them. So there's the Claire Friedlander Family Foundation Arts and Culture Award. There's the Flushing Bank Innovation Award. And from an innovation perspective, organizations can be innovative for many reasons. An organization can be innovative in its programming, an organization can be innovative in its fundraising, different use of technology, whatever it is. So whatever the innovation is, you have to try to put in for something that's, like I said, different from what everybody else is doing. And then finally, we have the Vanguard Insurance Agency Rising Star Award. And it's really the same as the Social Impact Award, but for smaller organizations. So this doesn't mean it's a brand new organization. It could be an organization that's been around for a long time. It just means it's an organization that's generating less than $2 million worth of revenue, but also having that same social impact, both on a micro and macro level. So those are pretty much a description of the 5 awards. Remember, you can apply in multiple categories. So if you want to apply in both social impact and innovation, or social impact, innovation, and leadership, obviously you can't apply in both social impact and Rising Star, because one is over $2 million and one is under $2 million. But you can apply in multiple categories other than that. And please also be careful when you're doing your application to keep in mind that there is that distinction of that $2 million threshold. We have a lot of organizations each year that put in for the wrong category. So you really have to just make sure you're putting in for the right category. So if you're under $2 million, it's Rising Star. If you're over $2 million, it's social impact. In order to qualify for the Imagine Awards, you have to be a 501c3 organization. So we don't do C6s and C7s and C9s. You have to be a 501c3 organization. You have to be a public charity, not a private foundation. You have to have significant services in Nassau and Suffolk. I mean, what we're really interested in is what impact are you having on the Long Island marketplace? So even if you're a Long Island-based organization, but you're doing services, let's say, out of the country, you're really not going to be able to show the impact that you're having on Long Island. So we're really more concerned about organizations that are impacting Long Island. And again, you have to have impact, innovation. You know, the application has to set you apart from everyone else. You know, we're looking for organizations that are the leaders in the nonprofit sector. We're looking for organizations that are setting the tone, setting the pace. Again, this is an award, it's not a grant. So we're really looking for organizations that kind of stand out. And you know, you could be doing something innovative and different this year than what you did last year. It's those things that stand out that are going to get you noticed. Just a couple quick things before, and if anybody has questions, feel free to just chime in and ask questions as we're going. But just a couple quick things that I want to kind of throw out there that I know come up every year when I'm talking to different nonprofit organizations. So first of all, you want your application to stand out. Okay, how do you make your application different? So let us, first of all, have someone proof it, because you know, the last thing you want is to have a whole bunch of errors and run-on sentences or grammatical issues. I know this is not a grammar thing, but definitely some of the people who read the applications are reading it for the clear thought process, and grammar does unfortunately come into play sometimes. Make sure your application stands out. Make sure it's sets you apart from other nonprofit organizations. If you happen to be a school, you know, what makes your school special? What makes your school unique? What makes your school different, as opposed to just saying I'm a school? Show how your organization is impactful. What is the impact you're having? Again, as I said earlier, both from a micro and a macro perspective. How are you changing the lives of the people that you serve, or the animals you work with, or the environment around you? How are you providing economic support, or how are you changing? So again, if you're an organization that helps individuals from recidivism in, what do you call it, going back to jail, talk about the impact that has for every individual you keep out of jail. That's saving taxpayers, you know, thousands of dollars or whatever the number is. And the more that you can add some factual information and statistics within that impact, the better off you're going to be. I found that the committee and the judges kind of like to be able to see things and kind of monetize it and then kind of understand it. I think, you know, some of the things that we find that a lot of times the applications come in and it's a little bit ambiguous. And if you can try to kind of make it a little bit easier for people to read, understand, and comprehend in terms of the impact you're having, I think the better off you're going to be. Include examples, you know, put in some specifics. If you can show examples of how you're helping people, if you can show examples, or even testimonials from some of the people that you've worked with, some of that stuff where, you know, it's that old let people see behind the curtain of what's going on within your organization. It's that feel-good aspect of it. I think that kind of helps to, you know, not just, you know, it helps pull people into your application. Well, we've seen also a lot of applications, they'll talk about technology, and technology in and of itself is not innovative. It's how you use that technology. So if I'm a school and I say, you know, I use smart boards within my classrooms, so does pretty much every other school. How are you utilizing that technology differently from other schools? We had an application that came in a couple of years back from DDI, and their application, they used the Google goggles, and what they did is they were working with individuals with developmental disabilities. And those goggles, what they did is they programmed it to take these individuals, in essence, to, or virtually take them to a supermarket to go shopping. So they actually got comfortable going into a supermarket. These are individuals on the spectrum who aren't really comfortable walking into new and strange environments. So what they did is, through the use of the Google goggles, they actually brought down the stress level. They felt they had people repeatedly go into the supermarket virtually. And eventually when they went in real life, they were much more in tune with what to expect within that supermarket environment. So that was kind of an innovative use of technology, but it wasn't the fact that they used Google Goggles, it's how they used it and what was innovative about it. And then collaboration is also important. I mean, if you can show that you're collaborating with other organizations or collaborating with business, or it's that collaboration, that leverage, that ability to work with others, I think is really important. So just kind of a couple key things to kind of keep in mind. Couple questions that people are throwing out here, so we'll kind of go through some of those. So someone asked, can we submit video? We're going to say no. We're going to try to keep it to the application itself, try to keep it to the words on the page. And we've really limited the amount so that it's not going to take everybody hours and hours and hours to fill out the application. The application, if you go through it in a thoughtful way, shouldn't really take more than an hour to put together the application. But we don't want to have people have an unfair advantage. Some organizations might be able to afford a video, others may not be able to. I know today you can do everything through cell phones and do videos pretty quickly. But again, it's really going to be the application at this point. Down the road, we may move the application to a video application, but right now it's a paper application. Do you need to be located on Long Island in order to apply? You need to have a presence on Long Island. So when you say located, you don't have to have your main law offices on Long Island. We had a finalist a few years back. Actually, they won in the social impact category. Their main offices are up in Westchester, but they have substantial operations here on Long Island. So again, you don't have to be headquartered on Long Island, but as long as you have substantial operations. In terms of other materials to add within your application, can you add brochures, pictures, things like that? Again, the goal is to try to keep everything pretty even and try to make it fair so that there's no unfair advantage that one organization gets over another. We just had our New York City Imagine Awards, and within the New York City Imagine Awards, one of the finalists, they work with a population of children that honestly, when we watched the video, I don't think there was a dry eye in the room. And showing pictures or videos of those kids would have really influenced the committee and influenced the judges, whether they were the best organization or not. Sometimes that video can kind of sway or influence. So we try to keep things more in lines with, again, what's on the written page, and trying to keep things more documented and or more fair by having everybody have the same parameters, and really allow the story that you tell within the application to be the way that we determine who's going to make it onto the and to the next level, is whether it be the semifinals or the finalists. And remember, the way the process works, I mean, we have a committee of between 15 and 20 people who are going through and deciding whether it makes it to the next level. And then there's a separate judging panel of 7. And, the judges go through an application process just like you guys do. And they put in an application, and the committee selects the 7 judges who are ultimately going to be choosing who the finalists and winners are. So again, you're looking at a bunch of different individuals who come to this with different thought process and different biases. And although we try to tell people to keep their biases out of it, sometimes the biases creep in. So there is a broad enough base of individuals where I think every single organization gets a fair share in terms of this. Somebody asked, are the word limits strict in each category? No one's sitting here counting the words and saying, oh, you're supposed to have 150, you used 160 words. So no one's going to sit here and actually physically count the words that are on the page. But again, they're meant to be a guide. They're meant to keep it fair for everyone. If you start putting in 300 words in a category that says 150, people are not going to continue reading, and your application is going to get put to the side. Keep in mind that last year we had about 170 some odd applications that came in for the Long Island Imagine Awards. and our committee had to read all of the applications. So if the applications start to get too long and too unwieldy, the committee members are just going to lose interest. So again, you want to keep it succinct. You want to keep it entertaining. I don't know if that's even the right way to say it, but again, you should be trying to draw people into the application. So that's what you need to do. The applications are due by midnight on November 29th. So, you still have a little bit of time, but we typically get a rush at the end. So again, if people can get their applications in, getting it in sooner or later doesn't make a difference. As long as it's in by midnight on November 29th, then it goes over to our judges. The judge, goes to our committee, and the committee then reviews them. Our committee isn't necessarily anonymous. A lot of the committee members are the same year over year. You've got people who are very, very interested in being part of this, and they've stayed for an extended period of time. The judges, however, change on an annual basis, and the judges are anonymous. So we don't want anybody to know who the judges are, because we don't want people reaching out and trying to influence the judges. So that part of it is kept completely anonymous. If you want to be a judge, the application for the judge is on the Imagine Awards website, imagineawardsli.com. If you go on to imagineawardsli.com, that's where you can fill out your application for the Imagine Awards. And that's also where you can fill out your application if you want to be a judge. In terms of being a judge, and I know this isn't for judges, but people are asking questions about it. So if you want to be a judge, I think the thing to keep in mind is you want to show that you're in tune with the nonprofit sector. You want to show that you have a philanthropy focus. That's going to be important. If you are a judge, your organization can still apply. So some nonprofit organizations last year put in for judges, and they also put in for the award. Keep in mind that if you put in to be a judge, and you put in a application within a specific category, and you are a judge and you do make it to the semifinals for that category, you basically have to leave the room. You will not be privy to any conversation that takes place, and you won't know who won until the night of the event. From a judge's perspective, we also try to, whether it be judge or committee, we also try to keep in mind that some of you may have relationships with some of the committee members, and some of you may have relationships with some of the judges. And if there is a relationship that exists, some of you who put in applications could be client of our firm. We recuse ourselves from voting on that, not the category, but on the, we have to disclose our relationship. And somebody asked, are the judges or committee members from the nonprofit community? The answer is yes. We have several committee members who are part of the nonprofit community, who work within nonprofit organizations. And invariably every year we have one or two judges that might be either they are nonprofit or work within a nonprofit organization, or we've had in the past individuals who maybe used to be executive directors of nonprofit organizations who have now retired. So, there's that. When somebody asked what kind of statistics should we include in our application in order to help us stand out more. Again, I can only speak from my perspective. I can only speak from what it is that I'm looking for in an application. Everybody's going to approach this differently. Like I said, all of the committee members are going to look at this from their own point of view. For me, what's important, I'm really interested in leverage as one thing. So if I'm an organization and I can show, so let me give you an example. So there's an organization out there called Gift of Life International. And what Gift of Life International does is they go and they do surgeries in third world countries. and again, this is the Long Island Imagine Award, so I'm using them as an example because they couldn't apply anyway because they're not doing impact here on Long Island. But I think it's easy for you to understand what I'm talking about by way of leverage. So if I've got an organization, let's say Gift of Life, and Gift of Life does surgeries in other countries. So they raise money. They use that money to fly specialist doctors, surgeons to these third world countries. They use it to buy equipment that they will use for the surgeries. And what they do is they fly doctors from the United States to the third world countries. They get the equipment to the third world countries and put it in the hospitals that they're going to be doing the surgeries in. And the doctors are training the doctors from the United States are training doctors within these third world countries on how to do these surgeries. So if you think about it, if I'm bringing in $100,000 worth of revenue, and I use that $100,000 of revenue to buy equipment that's going to be used in perpetuity within these hospitals in third world countries, I'm flying across doctors who are donating their time and energy to do the surgeries, and they're also training other doctors within the marketplace or within these third world countries to do the surgeries. Think about the leverage I just created. For every dollar of money I bring into the organization, I'm probably having a 30 to 40 time impact. So it's those types of things that are very, very important to show. Sustainability is important. Like I said, impact, overall impact. How do you measure impact? Is it anecdotal how you measure impact? Do you do surveys? Do you do studies? Are there statistics that you can find online that support your position? So let's take an organization like Book Fairies here on the island, where they put books in the hands of children and adults who don't have access. Well, if they can do some research and find that for every book a child reads, or for every point of literacy we raise, overall, that has a $50 million impact on the country. I mean, those are important statistics to throw into an application to kind of make it real for the readers. And that's something, again, maybe as an accountant, maybe I'm a little different, but I get drawn into those types of numbers. Those are the things that really get me excited and kind of, align me with an application. So those are things, even things like, if you're a community-based healthcare organization, you're keeping people out of hospitals, and you can kind of, show that, you had a 30% reduction in hospital stay because of the, or emergency room visits because of how you provide services, or because you're an organization that has been able to lower the recidivism rate of individuals going back to jail by 82% of the people. The normal recidivism rate is, let's say, 68%, and you've gotten the recidivism rate of the individuals you work with down to 20. That's really big, and those types of statistics are going to be very helpful. Someone asked, do we recommend applying in more than one category, or should we focus on one? That's up to you. We've had individuals who have applied in as many as 3 different categories. We've actually had one, it was a few years back, but one person make it to the finals in 3 categories. We've had people make it in 2. So really, it's up to you whether you want. I mean, the goal is to create meaningful applications, and they shouldn't be rehashes of each other. They should be distinct and aligned with the category that you're putting your application in. So if you're putting your application in the innovation category, innovation is not necessarily, this is what we do as an organization. Innovative is, this is something innovative we do within our organization, whether it be innovative in service, whether it be innovative in fundraising. So you could have a really innovative fundraising event that you're doing this year, or you could have had a new program that you created that's really, really innovative. First year, the winner of the innovation category, first year we ever did the Imagine Awards, it was still early on in terms of texting. This was, again, 10 years ago almost. And they did counseling, and they worked with youth who are concerned with, their concern was with youth suicide. And they set up text counseling, because when they looked at it and they said, well, the normal counseling is, individuals call, but today's youth aren't calling, they're texting. So they set up a whole text counseling segment where they had individuals who were texting back and forth with, the youth that they served, and that was what won the innovation category that first year. So again, it's what are you doing that's kind of different, that's special, but feel free to apply in more than one category if you feel that you have the strength in more than one category. When the committee does look at applications, sometimes if someone is in multiple categories and they feel that there's good candidates in one category and maybe less good candidates in another, they may look at you and say, okay, I'll put them through on this one, but not on this one. So again, it's really up to you. Every one of the applications does take some level of time. And I know, we've had organizations, and I'll be honest with you, we've had organizations in the past get a little bit frustrated because, again, they're used to applying for a grant. And I've said several times already, this is not a grant, it's an award. I mean, again, this is, I don't want to say it's a contest, but I mean, it is an award. And, you're putting in an application and we only have 5 winners. That's it. There are 5 winners in total. And there are 20 finalists. So if we get 300 applications, there are still 20 finalists, so it's not that we can kind of invite everybody in. It just doesn't work that way. We don't have the resources, and that's not what our purpose is. Our purpose is to really recognize the special work that's happening within the nonprofit sector. And what's, I think, equally important as to whether you win or not or make it to the finals, as I said earlier, is to be in that room and to collaborate with other nonprofit organizations and to collaborate with other business leaders that happen to be in the room. When will we find out if we have made it to the semifinalist round? So the applications, as I said, are due by November 29th, midnight, November 29th. Then you have to give us time to review the application. So the whole committee, I think we're scheduled within the December 8th to 10th range to go through. So somewhere around mid-December is when you'll find out, because I think around the 8th to 10th is when the committee meets and they actually go through the applications. And it's actually a pretty interesting, the way we do it is we go through and we discuss each of the applicants, and really it's the committee members try to sway other committee members to to vote for the ones that are of interest to them, and we go back and forth, and it gets to be a little fun in terms of people trying to influence others. And we've had some organizations that started off on the cusp where we weren't sure whether they were going to make it in, and then like the 12 Angry Men, somebody pushed and got the application through, and that organization who was kind of on the cusp at the committee level ended up winning at the judge level. So, and I mean, we typically wind up, as I said earlier, we typically wind up with last year was 170 some odd applications. We expect to be somewhere around that 200 application level is what we kind of expect. So a little bit more, a little bit less, but that's kind of where we expect. And actually, I just got the message in the chat that the committee is meeting on December 16th. So if we're going to be meeting on December 16th, you'll find out a few days after. So you'll find out by the end of that week. I think December 16th is a Tuesday, I think. So you'll probably find out by that Friday or the following Monday. Oh, I'm getting the word that it's a Thursday. So probably by the beginning of the following week is when you'd find out. So I've been talking for a while here and just kind of rambling. Does anybody have other questions that they want me to touch on? Anything else that is burning and of interest? Okay, so somebody asked what happens after the semifinalist announcement, what information goes to the judges? Okay, so what we do is we go through, and in each category, we pick 7 semifinalists. So there will be 35 organizations in total that are the semifinalists. The semifinalists then get interviewed by the committee members. So each semifinalist is going to be assigned to one of the committee members. The committee members will either in person or through a Zoom meeting interview them and do their own write-up. They're basically your advocate. So that committee member has the ability to add somewhere around an extra 800, 900 words to what you've already have in the application. So then the application and the committee member write-up go to the judges panel. The judges then read the application and the committee member write-up, and that's what the judges use to make the decision. We encourage our committee members and we encourage our judges not to do their own exploration. We encourage them to not go out and visit websites and stuff like that. One other thing that I'm going to throw out that we typically have an issue with on the applications, and a lot of times it's wrong on the applications, is one of the things we ask for is the program service percentage. So we really want to gain an understanding of what percentage every dollar that the organization spends is spent in a program service capacity. The way you determine that is it on your 990, on the tax return you filed, the 990, there's a page, I think it's the third or fourth page within the 990, and it basically lays out program activities. It's also on your finance statements if you haven't audited financials, but it shows program activities, it shows management in general, shows fundraising, and then total. So if you take your program activity expenses, which include direct service and program administration, and you divide that by your total expenses, that'll tell you what your program service percentage is. And obviously, the higher the program service percentage, the more dollars are getting dedicated to your direct service activity. And that's something that some of the committee members are very, very interested in. They want to know, if you have a program service percentage of 30%, where 30 cents on every dollar is going to program activities and the rest is administration, you can be doing great stuff, but that might turn some of the some of the committee members off. So again, I think it's really, really important for you to understand how that program service percentage is calculated and make sure that it's properly reflected. From an arts and culture perspective, the next question comes along: what can I do to make my art and culture application stand out? I think from an arts and culture perspective, unfortunately, a lot of the applications start to sound alike in the arts and cultural organization, because when we deal with, the other categories can be very, very broad, because you've got organizations that might be built on research. They might be built on working with children or animals or health and welfare or whatever. It could be religious, whatever the category is. So the other categories can kind of be very broad-based. So you get a whole bunch of different applications. In the arts and culture organizations, you typically find that, you have performing arts or visual arts or whatever it is. And, some of them start to sound alike, to be honest with you. If I'm a local theater, in Bayport, or I'm a local theater in Southampton, how do I differentiate myself so I don't feel like I'm reading the same application? And that's what you should be kind of looking at, is how do I make the application kind of speak a little bit more in terms of impact? What are we doing with the community? How are we changing lives within arts and culture? What differentiates us from everyone else? How are you? So if I'm an organization, let's say, that is working with youth, and we have art classes and things like that. Again, a lot of organizations have that, but what sort of impact have you had? How have you seen the way that children have responded to the art classes? What are you doing differently within those art classes in terms of maybe the whole aspect of the whole science, technology, engineering, and mathematics? You add art in there to get STEAM. So how do you kind of build that art piece in to kind of meld in with the other parts of that whole, whatever it's left side or right side of the brain? So again, I think it's really just looking at your organization and trying to figure out how you can tell your story so it doesn't just sound like everybody else's story. And I wish I could give you better advice, but every organization is really going to be, doing things a little bit different. Got another question for the application. What is the time frame we should be describing, life cycle or of the organization or recently? Again, it really depends on what it is. I mean, if you're going after a leadership award, you're talking about the full life cycle of what that leader has done for the organization. If you're talking about innovation, innovation is going to be much shorter life cycle. It's going to be what's happening currently. So I think, you're going to look at things more from a, what's happened more recently. If you're talking about impact, even from a leadership perspective, if you had a newer leader that has joined an organization, maybe within the last 3 years, and within the last 3 years, they turned that organization around, they created new programs, there it may not be about longevity, it may not be about the long term of the organization, but it may be more about the short term and the dramatic impact that leader has had on the organization. So again, I think you need to really look at the story that you're telling and marry the time frame that you discuss within the application to the story that you're telling. Again, arts and cultural organizations, a lot of organizations last year focused on the pivot. What did they do to pivot during COVID? Now, understand that everybody pivoted during COVID. Understand that everybody moved to remote whatever and video this and video that. But again, how did you pivot differently if you're going to, if you were going to use that? And the organizations that made it through were ones that, were able to show how they changed their organization and changed it for the good, and also didn't just do something that was going to be relevant today, but also something that was going to be relevant for the long term. And again, I think that's important too. I think it's important, when you're looking at this, is, why are we a relevant organization? What makes us relevant? And what are we doing to stay relevant? Especially again, going back to the arts and cultural organizations, there's been a decrease in attendance, obviously because of COVID, but even before COVID hit. And what are organizations doing to change the way they do business to remain relevant within the the space? Also, from an arts and cultural perspective, going back to that question that somebody asked in terms of how do we stand out, it could also be, as we said, there's the micro and macro aspect of things. Micro being, again, how are you changing students, how are you staying relevant, and everything else. The macro is what impact are you having on the community. So if I, moved an arts and cultural organization, let's say into Northport, and Northport wasn't doing well, and all of a sudden I put my organization there, and it's bringing 3 million people a year to Northport, which is spurring economic growth in Northport. That's all things that you can kind of include in your application. Someone asked, did you say program service expenses divided by total expenses and not include fundraising and management in general? Well, management in general and fundraising are going to be part of your total expenses. So if you divide your program service expenses by your total expenses, which is program service, fundraising, and management, which is your total, if you do that, that'll give you your program service percentage. If anybody has any questions, or if anybody's trying to do the calculation and they're having a tough time with it, feel free to reach out to us, and we're more than happy to help you through that calculation. Again, it is an important calculation that some of the committee members do look at. So again, I think it's something that we want to make sure is kind of considered and that people get it right. We've had applications where people put it backwards and they show program service percentage of 14%, and when they meant to put 86% in. So you have to be really careful, because that does get certain people talking and gets people to maybe put your application on the side and say, not this one. If anybody has any questions, again, even after this webinar is over, if anybody has questions, they can reach out to us, and Christina just put it in the chat, but they can reach out to us at info@imagineawardslongisland.com, and we're more than happy to answer any questions. If somebody wants to ask about something within their application, we've had a couple of people reach out and say, is this innovative? Is this what you're talking about? Feel free to just throw a question out. We're more than happy to answer the questions. I mean, from our perspective, we'd like all of you to win. We'd like all of you to be in the finals. That's kind of what we're looking for. I mean, we're really here to shine a spotlight on the nonprofit sector and shine a spotlight on what organizations are doing. And I know I've said it a bunch of times, but I can't stress enough that, again, even if you don't make the finals or semifinals, you want to be in the room. I know the last 2 years we haven't had a room. It's been all virtual, but when you're in that room and you're getting to meet some of the other people, we had a small organization a couple of years ago come to the Imagine Awards, and Teresa Regnanti from United Way was one of the finalists that year under the leadership category. And they introduced themselves to Teresa, and United Way now funds that organization. So it's an organization that continues to get some level of funding every year from the United Way. So again, there are plenty of reasons why you should be in the room. Is that program fees, programs divided by program service expenses? No, it's program service expenses divided by total expenses. So if I had a 990 in front of me, I could kind of pop it up on the screen, but I don't. Actually, I do have a 990 in front of me. I can tell you what page on the 990 the schedule is. So it is page 10 of the 990. It's called Part 9, Statement of Functional Expenses. It's column B, Program Service Expenses, divided by column A, Total Expenses. So hopefully that will help. Page 10, column B, divided by column A. And that's if you fill out a full-blown Form 990. If you fill out a 990 EZ or 990N, it's going to be different. But for the 990 filers, those are the lines that you're looking for. Okay, if there are no other questions, I'll let you all go. You guys were really good, so you get out of school early. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining. Again, if you have questions, feel free to chime in and ask, and send everything to info@imagineawardslongisland.com. And don't forget, the applications are due by midnight on November 29th. Take care, everybody, and thanks for participating. Take care.